Welcome back to another video. Today's an exciting one. We have yet again more emulators available on the App Store. Now I did a video before about Delta on the App Store and I ran through that and it's awesome. And now the floodgates seem to have opened and we have RetroArch and PPSSPP. And I also think that we're gonna have way more coming to the App Store, and this is awesome. This is a great time to be alive. So I was gonna make two separate videos for each app, but I think I'm just gonna group it together and just run through it very quickly with the setup. So RetroArch, if you haven't used it before, it can be a little confusing. I still have moments where I try to figure it out, but it's not the worst. RetroArch essentially is a emulation app that lets you download the core straight away, or it already has cores downloaded, and these are just the different systems that you can run. So you have NES cores, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, SNES, whatever you want to a certain degree. Once you have that, you just go to your ROMs folder and load your content. Now for this use case, I showed you guys before how I have my ROM saved. I have it on my iCloud drive. If I go to my drive, I have my ROMs folder right here, and then I have all my games here. So PSP, PS1 BIOS, DS BIOS, whatever I need. And that way I can access this from other Apple devices. Go here, load content, open your directory, and let's say I want to run a GBA game. Let's go Tekken Advance. I'm gonna download it from iCloud, choose the core I wanna run it with. Let's go MGBA, and there we go. And you have horizontal, whatever orientation you want. And of course, you have access to mobile controllers as well. So backbone controller configured, and we're good to go. Now, one thing there is to note is that I haven't found a way to change the actual on-screen buttons to match a PlayStation game. I know you can, you just have to download it from the internet and then plug it in. Similar to Delta, but it's a little more hidden in the menus. But if you don't care about that, it doesn't really matter. Games like that, very easy. You wanna get out of the game, just go back, close content. For games that require BIOS, so for Delta, you need a BIOS for DS. For RetroArch, you don't. But what you do need a BIOS for is the PS1. So you have to go ahead online, just look for PS1 BIOS files. There should be a GitHub or a website that's safe. And then once you get that, you're gonna wanna go to the RetroArch folder that's on your phone, and then go to the system and drop the files in here. And then once you drop the files in here, RetroArch will know where the game is and then run that game. So let's load content, open, let's go to PS1. And again, I have a BIOS file here in my iCloud, that way I can pull it from other phones. So go PS1, Tekken 3, and you're gonna run the Q file. The bin files are necessary for other things for the game to run, but the Q file is what RetroArch's gonna read. And then you're gonna pick your core. Let's go with PCSX rearmed. And now you can kind of ignore the on-screen buttons and just use your controller. And then from here, if you want to make a save state, you can just go to save states and save it. But save states are something we'll get to later. That's it. You want to close content, you can close content. Core options, controls. I'm not going to go ahead and explain RetroArch just because that's a whole video on itself. If you guys want that, let me know. But it's pretty good. You even have disk management if you want to switch to disk 1 for games like Metal Gear Solid 1 where it has 2 disks. And that's essentially RetroArch. Very cool, very awesome to have a one-stop shop emulation app on iPhones and iPads, and Macs already had all this. but I think Apple TVs as well, which is pretty cool. Now let's move to PPSSPP. Now, like the name entails, this is just a PlayStation app. So from here, you're essentially going to just run the game. So load the game. I have Tenkaichi Tag Team on here. It's loaded in my iCloud, running from my iCloud. So I'll go ahead and run that, and the game starts. And I did play this game prior, so it should have my save file in here as well. There's my save file. Let's go ahead and get rid of, pretty sure we can go settings, controls, on-screen touch controls, turn that off, continue, and there we go.
Looks like I get to have a bit of fun. Prepare to meet your game.
If you want to go make a save state, you can go right here. If you want to save the game, you'll do that in the game, but it's pretty straightforward. Now, you can also have the game show up in the menu here, but you're gonna have to store them on the PPSSPP folder that's on your actual device instead of the cloud. But it's not a big deal for me. I'll just choose where I want to run it from and run it from the cloud. But that is your preference, because it's showing you right here, it's looking in the PSP folder within the actual phone. Now, one thing that I fumbled around with a bit and had trouble with was getting my save states from Delta onto RetroArch. And I don't think you can do it. For example, let's do Chrono Trigger. You can go here and export save file. Now let's just save it in saves. So the way that Delta has their files and the way that RetroArch has their files are different, and I haven't found a way to make the save states or the actual saves work. So if you guys know that, let me know. That way you can have one app that does everything. But I kind of like Delta better. I don't know, RetroArch is cool and all, but Delta it has the syncing between the different phones. So if I want to go to my iPhone and play it, I can sync it through Dropbox, which has been really clutch. Even with my iPad, if I want to play there, I can. RetroArch does have a sync feature. I just haven't had the time to look through it or make an account. Delta is just a little easier. What you can do though is transport your save states through PPSSPP through RetroArch. So if we go to the app right here, we have save data. This is Dragon Ball. Everything in here is Dragon Ball. All you do is copy this into RetroArch, into the save right here, PSP folder, and it's one of these. Save data, it's that right there. You can play your save states in RetroArch, but I do prefer PPSSPP just because you're able to change the resolution for the different games you're running. I don't have one running now, but you're able to tweak things a lot better and you have more control over it. Plus, it's a strictly PSP app, so it just functions a little better because it's only for one system. Also, when it comes to downloading games for RetroArch, a lot of the games you're gonna download for PlayStation have a zip at the end. So I'll go ahead and download one and show you what I mean. Okay, so we went ahead and downloaded Crash Bandicoot right here, and it's stored in the 7-zip. The iPhone isn't able to unzip that by itself. You have to download a new app, and that app is iZip. There's different ways of doing it. You can go through iZip, or you can click on it and share it to the app, and then once that opens up, click OK on unzipping everything. And then all you gotta do from here is go back to your files folder, click on iZip, take the Crash Bandicoot file, and move that over to your iCloud drive or wherever you keep your ROMs. So we can go to PS1 right here, and we're just gonna drop it in here. So it's dropped in there. So once we're done with that, we can go to RetroArch, load content, open, click on the Q file, and then choose the core. Now, I did run into issues where this was saying core cannot load. Just give it a while, try it again, maybe try a different core, and then the core will work. And that's it. Very easy to get set up. RetroArch, again, has so many different options you can set up and configure. If you want to take the time to get into it, I think it's really worth it. All right, guys, that was my quick little video on RetroArch and PPSSPP running on the iPhone. I don't think the model of iPhone will matter because, you know, these are pretty old games, but I am running on the iPhone 12 Pro Max. I've also run it on my iPhone 13 mini and my iPad 6 mini, and they all run great. Now, in my opinion, I'm gonna keep on using the Delta app for anything under PS1, and then I will use RetroArch for PS1 and PPSSPP for PSP. I like having separate apps for separate systems just because you're able to tweak it a little bit more, but I don't think DuckStation or anything else has dropped for the iPhone yet or the App Store, but when it does, I'm all on it. The only thing I could ask for at this point was an easier way to transfer saves from Delta to RetroArch. That's really the only thing holding me back at the moment apart from the saves. If you really want to, you can download RetroArch and have the BIOS files somewhere else on a different console and then manually transfer the saves. But having it cloud sync is just very clutch and easy. Let me know what you guys think. Are you guys ecstatic like me, even though I don't sound like it, to have emulation on iPhone? It's a great time, like I said, and a lot of time to tinker around and try different things you haven't tried it yet. So let me know down in the comments. If you liked the video, drop a like. If you want to see more content in the future, consider subscribing. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.